Hi, I'm J.John. Welcome to Facing the Canon. I am delighted to welcome elite athlete and Olympian Debbie Flood. Debbie Flood, welcome to Facing the Canon.
Thank you, it's great to be here.
Well, I've done over 100 of these interviews. You're my first elite athlete. So you grew up in the north of England, Harrogate.
Yeah, I did. I grew up in Yorkshire, yeah.
And when did you start enjoying sport?
Oh, I loved sport as far back as I can remember. I grew up in a really sporty family, so my dad loved running. He was a marathon runner. My mum also enjoyed running and being out on her bike. So myself and my younger brother, we just grew up doing sport. And, you know...
And was it judo that you started to do?
Well, running was my first love. I wanted to do what my dad did. So running was my first love, really. But then at a young age, probably around 14, I got involved in the judo team. And again, I loved competing. I loved working hard. And I actually ended up getting into the junior GB team for the judo, and thought that maybe that was going to be my big sport, you know. I used to watch the Olympics with my dad and think, wow, they're superhuman. But actually, I knew that I loved sport. I knew that I was passionate about it. And I thought, I wonder if one day I could ever be that good.
So how did you switch from judo to rowing?
Yeah, well, growing up in Yorkshire at that time, rowing wasn't a big sport in this country back in 1997. And so Yorkshire was not renowned for its rowing or for its long straight rivers. You know, we have rapids and bends. So I knew nothing about rowing. My school didn't row. I'd never noticed it on the television on the Olympics. So I was in the gym one day training for my judo and using the rowing machine. And somebody came up to me and said, "Are you a rower?" And I said, "No. Why do you ask?" And they said, "You are doing really good times on that rowing machine." And I think because I'd done sport from a young age, I was naturally quite fit and strong. So on the rowing machine, I was doing quite well. And so just thought, oh, okay, let's try this in my summer holidays, and went on a learn to row course. And that was really the kind of start of it.
What was your initial experience of as you started? Obviously very good in the gym, but it's a different story out on the water, isn't it?
Well, little did I know. I mean, the course was in London. I thought, wonderful, go to London for a week, row up and down the river, see how it goes. Little did I know actually how technical the sport is. And I pretty much spent my week rowing, swimming, because I fell in so much.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I just went nowhere. You know, I beat all the boys on the rowing machine, and then I came last on all the rowing on the water. But there was something about it, something that I wanted to continue with. And yeah, I kept going, and the coach from London really encouraged me. He could see I was strong on the rowing machine. So I went back to Yorkshire. I found a local club. I joined the local club. And, you know, that was actually where, you know, God brought someone into my path that I exactly needed. So the coach from London had told a guy called Mark Banks, who was at the time the chief junior coach of British rowing, and he told him about me. Now, his job normally would be to coach the best in the country. That was his job. That's all he had to do, coach the best in the country to go to the World Championships. But for some reason, he decided to come and have a look at me. He looked at me on the rowing machine and was quite impressed, looked at me on the water. You know, I was on the wrong side of the river. I nearly fell in. It was terrible. But he sat down with me and said, "I'm going to take you on. I'm going to coach you. I want you to travel to Nottingham every weekend, and I'm going to coach you." And that was absolutely unheard of, but it was the one thing I needed. I already had the fitness and strength. I needed the technical coaching, and he was the best technical coach in the country.
Years later, did you ever ask him why he did that?
I did. I mean, I know him really well still, and he coached me for many years actually. And he just said, "I don't know, there was just something about you, some kind of determination that I just wanted to work with, and I knew you were going to make it."
But he obviously, Debbie, spotted in you potential.
Yeah, yeah.
He obviously spotted in you ability. And isn't it incredible the difference a coach can make?
Absolutely, absolutely.
I had a conversation recently about school, and we were talking about the subjects that we did. And the ones that I liked were the ones where I got on really well with my teachers.
Yeah, yeah. You know, the power of the teacher or the coach to motivate and engage, you know, the individual is so great. And he really was, you know, he looked after me, he looked out for me, and, you know, he kind of took me under his wing really for the next 7 or 8 years.
So when did you realise, and when did he realise that you were championship type of possibilities?
Yeah, so actually once he started to coach me and really focus on the technical aspect of rowing, I actually did then progress quite quickly. So in that first year I ended up going to the Junior World Championships in a double with Frances Horton, and we got a bronze medal there.
And how old were you?
I was 17 at that point, yeah, 17.
Quite young.
Yeah, so it was right at the beginning of my career. It was the last year I could be a junior, and then I would be moving up to under 23s and senior things. But, you know, we all make our life plans, don't we? My life plan was to finish my A-levels that year after I rowed, and then take 2-year gap year before going to university, row full time, go to the Sydney Olympics, tick the Olympic box, and then get on and be a veterinary surgeon. That was my life plan. That was, if you'd have given me any other option of life, that was the best one that I could come up with.
But at the age of 17, getting a bronze medal, that's pretty good.
It was an amazing start.
So what did that lead to?
Yeah, so that led to me then being able to commit to those 2 years. I got a very small amount of funding, which enabled me to pay rent so that I didn't have to work too much in that time. I did have a part-time job, but I mainly focused on rowing. So I took my gap year, focused on rowing, rowed for
and
2
Debbie,
years.
When you say focused on rowing,
Yeah.
okay, give us an idea. What does that mean? How many hours a day?
Yeah, well, so we trained 2 or 3 times every day, and a training session would last between 90 and 100 minutes. So we would be training up to about 5.5 hours a day. Twice in the morning, they would normally be on the water, and then once in the afternoon.
Time?
So I would be in the gym at 7:30 for our briefing, and we'd be told what the first outing was, and then we'd go out on the water. We'd come back, have our second breakfast. That was always good. We'd eat before we obviously went on the water. So then we'd have our second breakfast, a little break, and then we'd go out on the water again for another 20 kilometres. Then we would have a break, have some lunch, and then a little break in the afternoon. Sometimes you'd have a quick hour nap if you could. And then you do either weights or rowing machine in the afternoon.
So pretty intensive.
Very intensive.
How many days a week?
So we'd occasionally get Sundays off as a cross training day or as a day off. But that is, you know, we got 3 weeks off a year. That's it. So 3 weeks off. That was our holiday after the World Championships or after the Olympics. That was our break. So,
but you didn't want to lose your fitness, so you have to keep it up.
It's important to have a break though for your body, just to like have some time off. But then, you know, you don't lose too much fitness in those 3 weeks. But it means that the whole of the rest of the year, that's what you do. You train. You know, it doesn't matter whether it's raining, whether it's icy, whether it's snowing. You know, you're out in all weathers.
So you did that for 2 years.
Yeah.
And what happened?
So I tried to go to the Sydney Olympics in my single, and I came second in the singles race off at our final trials, our British trials, which meant that I didn't get the slot. Now,
and how far back were you from number one?
Oh, I was leading the race until the last minute of the 8-minute race. So I was in the lead, and then the girl who overtook me, Alison, she just overtook me in that last little bit. So just missed out really, on that place to go to the Olympics.
How did that affect you emotionally?
I was absolutely gutted. My initial thoughts were that I've just wasted 2 years of my life. I thought, what was the point of rowing 2 years? I haven't made it. You know, for me, that was, you know, I wanted to go to Sydney and then get on with my life. So it was a real low point. And, you know, my coach said to me, look, you're still on a really good standard. You know, you've just missed out on going to the Olympics. You're brilliant standard. There's other things you can do this year instead. You can go to the under 23 World Championships. You can go to Henley Royal Regatta, which is a big event within the rowing calendar. But I didn't want to do those things. I wasn't interested. My head said...
Was that because you were hugely disappointed?
Hugely disappointed. And, you know, the only thing I was interested in at that point was going to the Olympics.
So it was almost like you threw the toys out of the...
I did, I definitely did. And I just was really down about it. And actually it was my coach that picked me back up and said, look, finish the season off, race, do your racing. You've trained for 2 years. Let's finish the season racing and then see how you feel. And so I did do that. I went to the Under 23 World Championships. I went to Henley Royal Regatta, and actually I got invited to be a spare. It's not really a nice word, is it? A spare at the Olympics.
And do they call them spares?
They do. They call them
oh my
spares.
word! It's like a spare tyre, isn't
Yes.
it? Oh dear.
And so I actually ended up doing all those things. And
how did you do at those?
I won at the Under 23 World Championships in my single, which was an amazing race. I absolutely loved it. And also I won at Henley Royal Regatta, which was the first time a British woman had ever won that event. And so both of those races I absolutely loved it. It was just amazing, an amazing time. And, you know, that was the standard I was at. I wasn't quite at Olympic standard, and I hadn't seen it at the time. You know, I thought I was good enough, but actually that year was amazing. I loved those races, and actually it was a significant moment in both my rowing life and also in my faith, because I thought that was going to be the end. And actually, it was really the beginning.
And there were other World Championships and there were other Olympics. So tell us about some of those.
Yeah, so the first Olympics that I was selected for was Athens. That was in 2004, so 4 years after the Sydney Olympics. And, you know, I'd never won a senior medal by that point. I'd won some minor ones, but not a major one. So we have the World Championships every year that is not an Olympic year. So 3 World Championships, then an Olympics. And for us in our sport, the Olympics is the pinnacle. You know, we'd give up all our World Championships medals for that Olympic medal. But I hadn't won any I hadn't won any World Championship medals before that point. So going to Athens was amazing. It was the first time I was representing my country at an Olympics. And Athens, what an amazing space to go to an Olympics, you know, the original home of the Olympics. It was also not very well finished. They hadn't got things done in time, but then that gave it a real authentic feel, you know,
yeah, I think
the dusty roads and it just felt real.
I was going to say, I'm Greek, so
yeah, it was.
I get it.
Yeah. And, you know, it was a very nerve-wracking time. I mean, if you think about it, by that point I'd been rowing for 7 years and we won our heat. We got straight through to the final. So you're sat on the start line in your final and you're thinking, I've just rowed for 7 years, trained for 7 years for this 1 6-minute race.
6 minutes.
1 6-minute race. One chance to get it right, just over 6 minutes. And yeah, we had no idea what to expect. We had high hopes. We were absolutely wanted to get a medal, but we'd never won a senior medal before. So it was all up in the air. And to cross the line in second place to Germany. Germany had never lost the women's quads at the Olympics. So they came first, we came second, and it was incredible. It was absolutely incredible. And those 3 girls, 3 of my absolute best friends still now. Oh. But it's, you know, to describe the experience of being at Olympics, it's so hard to describe. I mean, you finish your race, you've got absolutely no energy left. All our friends jumped the barriers in Athens and they swam out and they gave us flags and British hats and all sorts. And then you go straight to the press pontoon, the press interview, you've got no breath. I can't even understand what I'm saying. I'm just waffling away. And then you go from there to the press, to the medal pontoon, where the medals are presented. And, you know, it's such an amazing feeling. You're stood with your arms around your teammates, and you're not just sharing that race, you're sharing all the years of training that you've done and all the ups and downs in the lead up to that race.
How old were you?
How old was I? That was 2004, so I was 24. I was
Right.
24, yeah.
But then there was another Olympics?
Yep, and then Beijing, but you know, we'd won the silver in Athens. So in our minds, we were like, okay, we've got the silver, next one, Olympic champion. So the whole of those 4 years was really, the focus was, okay, gold medal standard eating, gold medal standard training, gold medal standard everything. We were also world champions in the run-up to that Olympics. So I was in the boat, in the quad, in 2006 and 2007. We'd won the world championships that year. I wasn't in the boat in 2005, but they had also won the world championships. So for that whole Olympiad, Great Britain had won the women's quad. So we went into Beijing as definitely one of the favourites. Great expectations, really high hopes, a strong crew. And we went out, we are a very strong crew. We won our heat again, straight through to the final. And then in the final, we led the race for about 6 minutes out of those 6 minutes and 16 seconds.
It's 6 minutes, 16 seconds.
Around that, yeah.
You
I just
led
got
it.
overtaken in those final stages by the Chinese crew, their home turf. They just pipped us at that post. And, you know, a second silver and a very different experience to Athens. We were absolutely gutted. You know, at the time, no words could console us. You know, we were crying on the press interview, we were crying on the podium. We need to get our pictures redone. They look terrible. So very, very different experience for our crew.
And is that because you felt you could have won?
Yes, and we'd hoped to, and you know, we were capable of, but you know, that is sport. On the day, if another crew goes slightly faster, they win. And that's a hard thing to get your head around as an athlete. You know, you're capable, but you have to do it on the day. You have to have the perfect race. And we didn't have a bad race. We had a really good race. But the Chinese had an even better race. And, you know, we'd beaten them earlier in the year. But, yeah, that was hard. That was a hard time.
So they beat you like by a second?
Yeah, about around that, just over a second. Yeah. It was close.
So then how did you cope this time with all that emotion?
Yeah, it was a real mixture. I mean, in that moment, I was just crying. You know, I couldn't even see because I was crying so much. Actually, the pictures from us, if you look at any of the pictures from us on the podium, I'm actually looking across to my right because I'm searching for my parents in the crowd, actually. And, you know, I was looking for them because I knew that I would feel better when I saw them. Because I knew that however I'd done, they loved me regardless. They were proud of me regardless. And actually, for me, you know, I'd been a Christian quite a while by that point. And, you know, that really in a way is a small picture of what God's like. You know, his care for me, his love for me is unchanged, whether I'm doing well, whether I'm not doing well, you know, whether I'm messed up, whether I've had a good race or not good race. And I think for me, you know, that is something, you know, my faith has been my anchor through my sport in terms of giving me perspective. You know, doesn't make me immune from the ups and downs of emotions, but actually it helps me reset a lot quicker. You know, I knew by that point in Beijing that, you know, I'm not defined by my medals.
Yes.
You know, my identity is deeper than that. Because you find that in sport, it's very easy for athletes to build their identity on their successes. You know, in the world, we build our identity sometimes on, you know, how well we're doing or what people say about us. And in sport, it's easy to do that. But it doesn't make any logical sense because you can go from hero to zero overnight in a bad result or in an injury. And so if you think your worth and value is based on how well you're doing or on what other people say about you, which is also changeable and fickle, you know, it's an unstable place to be. And so for me as a Christian, you know, I know that my worth and value is unchanging regardless of how I'm doing in my sport. You know, God says that I have value, I have purpose, I am his masterpiece, and that doesn't change. And actually as a Christian, I am a child of God and nobody can take that away from me. So for me, that kind of like rock, that foundation helps me to put other things in perspective. I know that I'm not my results. So that definitely helped in Beijing.
And how long did it take from getting the silver medal to really standing on that rock?
Yeah.
Because obviously it was rocky until you stood on that rock.
Absolutely.
Was it days? Or
I think even the next day.
You got it.
Yeah, because it's such an amazing privilege to even be at an Olympics. And, we race in the first week of the games, and then we get the second week to watch the rest of the British team competing and racing. It is an amazing privilege. And, when I woke up that next day, I wanted to still enjoy that privilege and be proud of what I'd achieved. Like I say, we didn't have a bad race. We had an amazing race, and I was, we were proud of each other, but we were just gutted about the results. And I think definitely even from the next day, that started to stand me in good stead.
Now, show us some of your medals, Debbie. I mean, you have got a lot. You have.
So this is the Athens medal, Athens silver medal. That was from the 2004, and the front design is always the same now. It's always the same. And on the back is ancient Greek, so the country can decide what they want to put on the medal.
Beautiful.
And then the Beijing medal, again, the front has the same design.
Wow.
And then on the back is Chinese jade.
Yeah.
So they're really special. And again, the team mates that I rode with, really special relationships with them.
And then here are just
and then
some of your medals.
A few of the World Championship medals. So again, there's something very special about hearing your national anthem, which is what happens when you win, which is brilliant. So these are my
wonderful
3 senior World Championship medals, and then my 2 under-23 World Championship medals, and then this first precious one as well, the bronze medal from the Junior World Championships.
I mean, amazing. When you read in the Bible, Debbie, about St. Paul's saying about running the race, and we don't run just to get this.
Yeah.
We run for a wreath that will not perish. How does that make you feel?
Absolutely. It's interesting because I've been asked in the past, if I could offer you Olympic gold medals, would you swap that for your faith? But for me, my faith in Jesus is worth more than anything that we could ever achieve on this earth. And, that doesn't just impact my eternity to be able to be with God forever when I pass away, which my medals won't come with me. But, day to day life, when I became a Christian, I went from doing life in my own strength, on my own, to doing life with God. And, that is an incredible privilege. I learned that, yes, God blesses us with abilities and talents and opportunities, but first and foremost, he wants a relationship with me. And as a Christian, I have a relationship with the living God. And that is something of much more worth and worth persevering for that than it is to win medals.
Absolutely. What would you say to any of our viewers, Debbie, who haven't yet begun running the Christian race? What would you say to them?
I would say you've got absolutely nothing to lose by investigating into who Jesus is and making that decision for yourself. And it will be the best decision you ever make. So I would say, look into it. Be open to God speaking to you through what you read, through reading the Bible, through speaking to other Christians. Ask questions. It's important to ask your questions and make that step forward.
Thank you, Debbie. You, following all these amazing experiences, decided it was time to almost like have a gear shift.
Yeah.
And now you work for Christians in Sport. Tell us, who are Christians in Sport?
So Christians in Sport is a charity that their aim is to reach the world of sport for Jesus, to help people to understand who Jesus is, and also to support those that are already Christians by walking alongside them, encouraging them in their faith, giving them resources to be able to grow as a Christian, but also to share their faith with others. And my particular role is to work with elite athletes. So I walk alongside elite athletes. Some have a Christian faith, some don't yet. And I encourage them in their sport, but also in their faith. I will open the Bible with them and direct them to God's truths. Depending on what's going on in life, God's got something to say about all of that and cares about where they're at and what they're doing. So it's wonderful to be able to walk alongside the athletes. Christians in Sport actually supported me when I was in the team, which I was extremely grateful for.
And how do you see the future?
the future. God has the future in his hands. Yeah, it's wonderful working alongside athletes. I'm also going to be working with CAP, Christians Against Poverty. So they support people to get out of severe debt. And again, a big part of that is not just helping people get out of their debt, but actually giving them a hope in Christ, introducing them also to our biggest hope that we have, which is Jesus.
I hope you don't mind me asking, Debbie, but you recently had quite a severe loss.
Yeah.
Are you able to tell us about that?
Yeah. Again, life is however long life is going to be, and rowing was a small part of that, with the ups and downs and joys and losses of that. But recently for me, family has been part of my life. I got married. I then had a daughter who's now 2, and that was a really tricky time. She was born 10 weeks early. She was £1.13 and really struggled, but just got through. But then recently, a few months ago, I gave birth to twin boys who were stillborn, and they didn't make it. And again, I just know God is faithful through all of this. He is in it with me. He has comforted us. He's been alongside us. And it's interesting because actually the actual day it happened, I wrote in my diary, God, I still love you. You are faithful. And it's interesting. It was just my natural instinctive response. And it's been a really hard time. But, God's love for me doesn't change. He is alongside me in all circumstances, and he understands suffering. He understands how I feel, where I'm at, and he knows exactly what I need. And, Jesus is all I need to sustain me each day, and he carries us through.
And it's wonderful that you were able to express that you love God and that God loves you, rather than blame him for it.
Yeah, it's interesting because, when we had Rebecca, my 2-year-old, throughout that whole time, we'd given her life to him. Like, life is in God's hands.
Yes.
It is in his hands. He will sustain or he will take away. And the reasons for that, we can't know. And, he didn't sustain that life. And we don't know the reasons for that, but it's not a blame thing. It is as it is. And, we just trust that that's in his hands. And we know that our boys are in heaven and we will see them one day. And again, that is of great, great comfort.
You are, honestly, Debbie, an absolute inspiration. It was great to hear a little of your own journey of faith, and keep on keeping on. Thank you for joining us on Facing the Canon.
Thank you for having me.
Wow, wasn't that hugely inspiring? I hope you found it and experienced the faith lift. I feel like I have. Thank you so much for joining us on Facing the Canon. Please join us again.